Chapter 5. The Pastor in the Woods. The pastor admits that his daredevil approach to helping defectors escape the North Korean dynastic regime's tyrannical rule is like something out of a James Bond film. Chris White, The Sun, published 11:54 a.m., February 27th, 2019. In the wake of 2020's disastrous pseudo-pandemic, the global destruction caused by corrupted bureaucracy foisting totalitarian control wherever possible, North Korea may have ended up worse off than anyone. They were already a hermit country limbed in totalitarianism through the pseudo-Marxist religious dynasty of the Dear Leaders. Now the administration had an excuse to double down on their totalitarianism and get money from diverse groups from doing so, like corporations out of China pushing surveillance equipment, or grants from health agencies as motivated to inhibit the spread of COVID-19. North Korea has always been keen on negotiation, and where any leverage at all can be found, it will be used. Common pressure tactics would be rooted in an argument like this: why should the Democratic People's Republic of Korea spend resources safeguarding its country from a capitalist disease? We are already isolated and struggling. What sort of incentive is there for such robust action on our part? We have 100 million citizens to manage. They had under 30 million, but such hyperbole defined North Korean negotiations. However, though they wouldn't back down from the table without their pound of flesh, they would usually settle for, say, 9 ounces instead. They were insistent, but they were relatively cheap. Meanwhile, even after getting 60% of what another country of similar size and need would, North Korea made out like a bandit. They reaped treasure troves from a variety of criminal organizations posing as special interest groups and government departments. Subsequently, the net result of their safety measures was more hardship for their own people, rather than any real contribution to the world. COVID-19 also provided North Korea ample opportunity to double down on its border defenses. After all, their citizens couldn't escape and infect the world or be captured and bring the illness back with them. It was during these years that a policy of banishment for even family of known defectors was enacted. Ultimately, increasing instances of defection from those banished was the result of these actions. But the border was harder to cross than ever, with 2 lines of barbed wire creating a buffer zone where those fleeing regime would be shot on sight, and the soldiers doing the shooting rewarded financially or through some incentive like a vacation. If a defector got past all that, there were minefields to contend with. This state of affairs became more dire as the years went on, not less. Humanitarian efforts suffered. Pastors in South Korea, who ran a number of underground railroad operations, were stymied. The escape route generally went through China into Vietnam, Laos, and then Thailand, where refugees would be arrested by the Thai and exported to South Korea for processing. It was a Herculean journey involving safe houses, hikes over mountains in deathly humid heat, evasion of local government patrols, bribing of transportation brokers, betrayal from transportation brokers, and a great deal of discomfort generally. With COVID-19, all the borders in communist bloc countries, especially those adjacent China, became more severe. After the crisis died down, the restrictions remained and dug in. It was ever harder to spirit refugees from the north to the south of Korea. The DMZ, or demilitarized zone, was impassable, full of mines, guns, and barbed wire. There were also many mines at sea to the east and west, and patrol boats galore. The Russian border was too cold and remote, hemmed in by mountains and a river. Just west of that 10-mile stretch were over 200 miles of river that bordered on China, and this was the primary avenue of escape. But between economic woes on either side of the fence, COVID-19, and increasing regimented power of the communist bloc countries, passage was harder than ever. Some pastors and other human rights organizations continued their good work, helping those North Koreans who, despite all odds, were bold enough to make the crossing anyway. They would keep brokers honest, guiding refugees through the journey halfway around the world to South Korea, where they would be repatriated, re-educated, and reintroduced to the larger population. There were those who were injured, killed, and tortured, incarcerated, and worse, sometimes used as bait for true refugees from North Korea so they could be recaptured and punished, often fatally. Defection in North Korea after the COVID-19 crisis became treasonous, punishable by death if the government wished, and the North Koreans were clearly not shy in enforcing this. But the hardship was still there, and many kept seeking to escape it, and many failed, becoming either traded in Chinese human trafficking rings, made to work in sweatshops, or returned to North Korea. Those who felt the burden of the masses in the North kept fighting and sought any option they could. One pastor, who essentially made such refugee aid his ministry, Park Sun-young, expanded his horizons for support, and through a variety of misadventures came in contact with a group called CALM. CALM, C-A-L-M, stood for Codified Anthropological Logistics Management. CALM actually reached out to Sun-young after he had been searching for aid quite some time and made his need for assistance known publicly through a variety of advertisement channels. What unsettled Park Sun-young was that they wouldn't let him tag along when they helped move refugees. They were a great help and faster than any underground network Sun-young ever encountered, but he couldn't figure out for the life of him how they were doing it. This is what prompted him to follow them, as he wondered if there were an angle he did not yet know. There was. It was high summer on the Chinese border, and Tumen River was fat in his banks. A family of 8, a group much larger than Sun-young was ever able to safely transport, became essentially stranded in the mountains with a satellite phone, coordinates, and not much else. They could only communicate in short bursts or the signal would be tracked. They had already stretched the battery's life for over a week by only activating the phone when they made a call. Both Chinese and North Korean flavors of communist wanted these refugees for varying reasons, and the sleazy Chinese broker who was supposed to help them make transit was out of contact. Enter CALM. Sun-young was told the family would be in South Korea by the following morning, but here was a journey that would take a week to a month at least, depending on how well the family was able to avoid authorities. Even if they boarded a plane, they'd have to get to it, take off, fly around North Korean airspace, land, and disembark. Yet CALM never missed a deadline they said they would hit. How? Sun-young was close to 70, slightly plump, jovial, and prone to the odd unfiltered angry comment. He was clean-shaven, and his hair yet retained color. He commissioned several of the fellows from the worship band of his church to accompany him, and as they were all in China helping with various activities related to the escape artery, this was accordingly convenient for all. Sun-young and co. found the family, and up the hill set up infrared cameras. Cameras were all important along the border, as they would reveal troop movements, border security changes, and more. Park Sun-young retained access to many cameras, infrared and otherwise. The family was in a tent that looked as though it were improvised from an old sleeping bag, ropes, and rocks. They were huddled inside when a ringing noise indicated a call from a satellite phone. Sun-young focused the camera's lens on the scene as all 8 came out of the tent. There were 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, 3 adults in or around middle age, and a little old lady. The man came out talking on the phone, saying, Yes, we are ready." He ushered his family out of the tent and used a flashlight on a bit of paper. He looked straight forward and took about 20 steps, measured. His family followed like ducklings. He then took a left, did the same, took a right, and did the same once more. Finally, they came to a particular point in the woods that Sun-young could just barely make out with his infrared camera. Abruptly, there was a bright flash that washed out night vision. Sun Yung put the camera down and saw what he could only describe as a bright, multicolored portal in the mountainside. A cat jumped out of the maelstrom, followed by two men in military gear, including night vision goggles, rifles, and face masks. They spoke to one another briefly, then addressed the family in Korean, greatly muffled by distance. Suddenly, one of the men interrupted the other, and there was some issue concerning the cat. One of the men pulled a kitten from his vest, and there was a low, muted thumping noise. The green coruscating portal disappeared, and a light breeze followed it. The first cat was retching on the ground. Up the hill, Sun Yung could hear the familiar noise. Sun Yung stood, as did the boys from the church band that were with him. Down the hill, with shocking suddenness, one of the men threw the kitten at the area on the mountain where the portal had been, and abruptly another fissure swam out of emptiness, the cat tumbling through. The man ushered the family into the pool of twilight this time, yelling at them to hustle, then jumped in after. "Come on, boys," Sun Yung said, and they ran down the hill to the portal. Looking through, Sun Yung could see another set of men by another circle of warbling otherworldly light, and the family running to it, bracketed by the men in military gear who came to save them. But they were all frozen in time. "What is it?" Min Suk, the skinny drummer of the church band, asked. He had to pull back his long hair to see, eyes wide over his attempt at a mustache. "Some kind of technology," Tae Sol, the bassist, offered. He had no hair on him anywhere. "I have an idea." Sun Yun looked over his shoulder at them, then at the portal, then slowly reached his hand out to touch it. It irised shut with a fat thumping noise, and the night was dark. A dog barked in the distance. The North Koreans must have noticed the disturbance on the hillside. "We better get back to the city," Sun Yung said, and they made their exit. True to the words of the man from Calm, the family showed up in Seoul the following morning, ecstatic at their escape and positively effervescent about South Korean portal technology. Most at the reorientation desk took this to be some sort of poetic North Korean slang and just agreed with the defectors through smiles and nods. Over the phone, Central personnel informed Sun Yung all had gone according to plan yet again. Over the phone, Center personnel informed Sun Yung all had gone according to plan yet again. After discussing the matter with Min Suk and Tae Sol, the drummer and bassist, Sun Yung decided it best if they didn't mention what they had seen on the Chinese mountain until he could discuss the matter with the little Indian man who was his contact at Calm. His spirit did not feel afraid regarding what he had seen, but neither was it settled.